Have you ever felt that overthinking is a problem? That the more you understand things, the harder it becomes to live? Perhaps you've noticed that certain conversations seem empty, that the people around you are satisfied with trivial distractions while you feel increasingly out of place. The truth is, there is a price to intelligence, a price that no one tells you about. Arthur Schopenhauer, one of the most pessimistic and brutal philosophers in history, believed that intelligence was not a gift, but a curse. According to him, those who see reality more deeply do not live better. On the contrary, they suffer more. They are misunderstood, isolated, and even rejected by society. After all, the truth is not something people want to hear. They prefer to cling to their comfortable illusions, live on autopilot without ever questioning anything, and those who dare to break this bubble become a threat. Perhaps you have felt this in your own skin. You try to share an idea, a more complex thought, and all you get in return are empty stares or uncomfortable laughter. You realize that the world has no patience for deep reflections. People want simple answers, easy entertainment, distractions that make them forget their own existence. The problem is not you. The problem is that most people are not interested in the truth because the truth is unsettling. And here is the great secret that Schopenhauer revealed. The more intelligent you are, the harder it will be to find a place in the world. A brilliant mind is a curse because it destroys illusions. When you realize that everything around you, society, relationships, human ambitions, is based on deception and self-delusion, you are faced with a choice. Pretend you don't see or accept the loneliness of deep thought. If you have ever felt that your intelligence separates you from others, that your perspective on the world makes you question things that no one else seems to notice, then this is for you. Because today we explore Schopenhauer's hidden secret, a secret that can completely change how you view your own mind. Perhaps after this, you will never want to be intelligent again. If you have ever felt that your intelligence separates you from others, it is not imagination, it is real. Schopenhauer not only knew this, he philosophically proved why it happens. According to him, elevated intelligence does not bring people closer together. On the contrary, it creates an abyss. Think of moments when you tried to explain something deeper to someone and realized they simply could not keep up. Perhaps you talked about a book, a philosophical concept, or a subtle observation about life. Instead of interest, you encountered boredom, impatience, or disdain. This happens because most people do not want to think deeply. They want easy answers, simple stories, and a world that does not challenge their certainties. Schopenhauer believed that elevated intelligence creates isolation because society operates on a more superficial level. He compared the human mind to a boat. Most people sail close to the shore in shallow, predictable waters. Meanwhile, the more intelligent are pushed into the open ocean, a vast, deep, and lonely place. While others enjoy themselves near the beach, carefree, those who see further are forced to confront the terrifying vastness of reality. This explains why extremely intelligent people often feel they do not belong anywhere. They see the errors of society, the contradictions of human behavior, the futility of certain ambitions. But when they try to alert others, few want to listen. Worse, those who challenge collective ignorance are seen as arrogant, pessimistic, or threatening. This isolation is not just social, it is emotional. Schopenhauer argued that intelligence brings increased sensitivity. More intelligent people not only understand more, they feel more. They perceive injustices more intensely, suffer upon seeing hypocrisy, and have difficulty conforming to mediocrity. This creates a cruel cycle. The more intelligent you are, the more deeply you feel the pain of the world, and the less you can share it with others. But if intelligence truly condemns one to isolation, what is the fate of great thinkers? Are they all doomed to solitary and melancholic lives? Or is there something worse? Schopenhauer believed the answer was not just loneliness, but suffering. If isolation seems cruel, Schopenhauer warns of something even worse: the inevitable pain that accompanies intelligence. He believed a man's suffering is directly linked to his capacity for perception. The deeper you see the world, the more reasons you have to feel frustrated, disappointed, and anxious. Ignorance protects people, allowing them to live in a state of existential anesthesia. But why does intelligence generate suffering? The first reason is obvious. Reality is harsh. Most people spend their lives seeking pleasure, distraction, and meaning in superficial things. Money, status, empty relationships, religious dogmas. For Schopenhauer, all this is a fragile illusion. The wise person, one who sees reality clearly, realizes how arbitrary and ephemeral these desires are. He sees that the world is driven by chaos, chance, and human irrationality. With this, one loses the ability to deceive oneself and believe in a just order or supreme purpose guiding existence. The second reason for the suffering of the wise is frustration with mediocrity. Schopenhauer argued that most people operate at a lower mental level, not because they cannot think, but because they do not want to. They prefer the easier path, ready-made answers, and avoid reflection that forces questioning their lives. The intelligent man cannot avoid this questioning. He sees beyond appearances and perceives the hypocrisy and contradictions of the world. When he tries to share this vision, he almost always encounters resistance, disdain, or hostility. History is full of thinkers who were rejected, persecuted, and ridiculed simply for seeing beyond the obvious. Socrates was sentenced to death for challenging ancient Athens' beliefs. Nietzsche was treated as a madman for exposing the fragility of traditional morality. Giordano Bruno was burned alive for asserting the universe was infinite. These men did not suffer because they were wrong, but because they were right too soon. They saw a truth society was not ready to accept. Here we arrive at the third and cruelest reason for the suffering of the wise: existential loneliness. A man of high intelligence may have friends, a family, even be surrounded by people, but at his core, he will always feel alone. Intelligence creates an invisible barrier between him and the world. He may try to explain his anguish, reflections, deepest doubts, but will almost never be completely understood. This chasm between deep perception and collective superficiality is one of the greatest torments of a brilliant mind. In light of this, Schopenhauer poses a disturbing question. If thinking deeply leads to suffering, is true happiness found in ignorance? Is the only way to live without anguish to reject critical thinking and surrender to ordinary life's distractions? If intelligence leads to isolation and suffering, then the opposite must also be true, right? Less intelligent people seem more satisfied with life. They worry less about existential issues, do not waste time reflecting on the futility of existence, and find pleasure in simple things: disposable entertainment, trivial conversations, predictable routines. Is ignorance really a blessing? Schopenhauer believed so. For him, happiness and intelligence are inversely proportional. The more someone understands the nature of reality, the harder it becomes to find joy in it. In contrast, those who live without questioning simply go with the flow of life, without carrying the weight of overly deep thought. While a wise man anguishes at the realization of existence's ephemerality, an ordinary man finds satisfaction in momentary distractions. While a philosopher reflects on society's emptiness, most people occupy themselves with trivialities and daily concerns. This happens because the human brain was not designed to seek the truth. It was designed to survive. If this is all making sense to you, hit the subscribe button and join the paradox theory. Thank you. The ordinary man lives guided by what Schopenhauer called the will to live. a blind impulse driving us to pursue pleasure and avoid pain. Questioning this process too much generates suffering because it dismantles the illusions that make life bearable. Think about how society glorifies success, love, and status. All of this functions as a great collective theater that keeps people occupied. The intelligent man realizes deep down all this is temporary and often meaningless. But in realizing this, he disconnects from the naive joy that keeps others motivated. This phenomenon can be observed at all levels of life. In social settings, the most popular people are not necessarily the most intelligent. While a philosopher reflects on society's emptiness, most people occupy themselves with trivialities and daily concerns. This happens because the human brain was not designed to seek the truth. It was designed to survive. The ordinary man lives guided by what Schopenhauer called the will to live, a blind impulse driving us to pursue pleasure and avoid pain. Questioning this process too much generates suffering because it dismantles the illusions that make life bearable. Think about how society glorifies success, love, and status. All of this functions as a great collective theater that keeps people occupied. The intelligent man realizes deep down all this is temporary and often meaningless. But in realizing this, he disconnects from the naive joy that keeps others motivated. This phenomenon can be observed at all levels of life. In social settings, the most popular people are not necessarily the most intelligent. In conversations, superficiality reigns because depth intimidates the majority. The intelligent mind often finds itself excluded, not because it is flawed, but because it does not fit the shallow currents of collective thought. This does not mean intelligence is a burden to be lamented without hope. Schopenhauer, despite his grim outlook, also offers a path toward peace, one that involves acceptance, detachment, and a different kind of wisdom. The curse of intelligence is only a curse if you try to resist it. If you fight against the isolation that intelligence brings, if you long desperately to be understood by everyone, you will only deepen your suffering. But if you embrace your solitude, if you accept that your thoughts, your perceptions, will often stand apart from the crowd, then something changes. You begin to understand that the world is not made for you to fit perfectly into it. It is made for you to observe it deeply and find your own meaning within that observation. This acceptance does not mean resignation. It means strength. It means the strength to stand alone, to hold your own truths even if they are uncomfortable or unpopular. This is the wisdom Schopenhauer admired most, the wisdom of those who endure suffering with dignity because they understand it is the price of seeing the world as it really is. The wise man carries a heavy burden, but he also carries a unique clarity. He sees through the veil of illusions that cloud the minds of many, and in that clarity finds a rare kind of freedom. Because when you no longer need the approval of the crowd, when you no longer depend on superficial pleasures to sustain your happiness, you become free. Free to explore the depths of your own mind. Free to appreciate the fleeting beauty of existence without denying its inherent pain. Free to create meaning where others see only chaos. In this way, intelligence is not only a curse but also a gift that demands sacrifice, a gift that requires courage, a gift that can lead to profound loneliness but also to profound insight. Many who have walked this path before us have left clues in history, philosophy, and art. Think of the great poets who suffered for their visions. Think of the scientists whose discoveries isolated them from their peers. Think of the philosophers who faced scorn for their radical ideas. All of them understood this paradox. To know deeply is to suffer deeply, but also to live more fully. So if you feel alone in your thoughts, if you feel the weight of intelligence pressing on your soul, remember this: you are not broken. You are not cursed beyond repair. You are simply bearing a truth that many cannot or will not carry. And in carrying it, You join a lineage of thinkers, creators, and visionaries who dared to see the world not as they wished it to be, but as it truly is. This is no easy path, but it is the path of authenticity, the path of true freedom, and ultimately, the path to wisdom. Schopenhauer himself was no stranger to loneliness and suffering. His life was marked by a deep sense of alienation. Despite his intellect, or perhaps because of it, he remained an outsider, someone who observed the world with a penetrating gaze but struggled to connect with it on a human level. He wrote often of the veil of Maya, a concept borrowed from Eastern philosophy, referring to the illusion that keeps most people distracted and unaware of life's true nature. Most humans live behind this veil, caught in the endless chase for fleeting pleasures, superficial relationships, and hollow achievements. But the intelligent man, or the truly aware individual, pulls back the veil. He sees that beneath the surface life is suffering, that pain is inevitable, that every joy is tinged with sorrow. This realization can be devastating. It can lead to cynicism, bitterness, or despair. Yet, Schopenhauer suggests there is a way to respond that transforms this suffering into wisdom. That way is through what he calls aesthetic contemplation. By losing oneself in art, music, or philosophy, one temporarily escapes the tyranny of the will, the constant drive to satisfy desires. In those moments, the individual experiences a form of liberation. This is not mere escapism, but a profound engagement with something beyond the self, beyond desire. Music, in particular, held a special place for Schopenhauer. He believed it bypassed the intellect and spoke directly to the will, the core essence of existence. When we listen to music deeply, we experience a release from the painful striving that defines much of life. This release is brief but precious, a glimpse of peace in a turbulent world. For those burdened with intelligence and awareness, these moments are lifelines. They offer a respite from isolation and a reminder that beauty and meaning still exist, even in suffering. But beyond art and contemplation, Schopenhauer also offers a radical ethical insight. Because suffering is universal, it should inspire compassion. To see the world clearly is to see the pain in others as well as in oneself. This insight calls for humility and kindness, a recognition that no one is truly separate in their suffering. This is why Schopenhauer's philosophy, despite its bleakness, can be deeply humane. He challenges the arrogant optimism of thinkers who deny the harsh realities of life. But he does not leave us hopeless. Instead, he invites us to face suffering with eyes wide open, to find meaning in that confrontation, and to cultivate compassion as a response. This is a powerful lesson for today's world. In an era dominated by distraction and denial, where most people avoid uncomfortable truths, the burden of intelligence can feel heavier than ever. The pressure to conform, to keep smiling, to pretend everything is fine. These are immense. But the alternative is to embrace your truth, no matter how isolating. To stand firm in the knowledge that life is complex, painful, and often unfair, and yet to keep moving forward with integrity and courage. This is the challenge of the intelligent soul. It is a challenge worth accepting, because it leads not only to wisdom but to authenticity, to living a life that is truly your own, not one shaped by the illusions of the crowd. This path of authenticity, however, is not an easy one. It demands what Kierkegaard called the leap of faith, the courage to embrace uncertainty, solitude, and sometimes despair in order to live genuinely. For the intelligent person, this leap is fraught with tension. On one hand, there is the desire to connect, to be understood, to belong. On the other, there is the painful awareness that such belonging often requires a dilution of truth. To fit in, one must sometimes hide the parts of oneself that don't conform. But this hiding breeds inner conflict. It fractures the self. The result is a subtle but profound loneliness, an exile within one's own life. Kierkegaard believed that the resolution of this tension lies in embracing the self as a relation, a synthesis of opposites, to accept both light and shadow, joy and despair, faith and doubt, to realize that the self is not a static entity, but a dynamic process. This process is what he called becoming a self. It is a journey that requires ongoing effort and courage, and it often begins with the painful recognition of one's own existential solitude. Loneliness in this sense is not simply the absence of others. It is the condition of being truly aware of oneself and one's place in the world. It is the space in which authenticity can arise, but it is also the place where anxiety and fear dwell. This existential anxiety, or angst, is a central theme in Kierkegaard's thought, and so must we. Before you go, I want to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to read your experiences and reflections. And if this message resonated with you, make sure to subscribe. It's important, much more than you imagine. And trust me, the journey we're on together is just getting started. The next videos are going to go even deeper, so stick around. You won't want to miss what's coming next. See you soon.